Come on, Polly Cam. Oh, I have 2 students today. I have 2 more.
Everyone check and make sure your mics are off unless you need to say something. Thank you.
I'm high. It's me.
Hello.
John. I'm
not
having.
on screen yet. I'm having trouble with my camera switch.
You too. I'm having some problems. That's how come my mic is on. It won't work unless my mic is on.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
I have. Okay.
We're gonna get there. Is there anyone new today? No one new today? Okay.
What are you trying to get it to?
Okay, it was on that, and then I tried to switch to PC cam. Okay, let's see if that goes back now. Okay, will that go to, okay, that's us.
You may have.
Okay. And I'll go back to, okay.
There it is.
Here it is,
So
okay.
you'll just have to use that middle button. Back.
Okay, the middle one, yeah. I thought that's what I did. Thank you, Brooke. Plainview and Lubbock, I can't, I'm not sure what we're seeing in the one camera, so y'all make sure.
We're not seeing
see
anything
the
in
class.
other.
I'm gonna turn off my mic for a minute, because I have something to tell this class, so. just being there. Let's see if I can get back on screen. We're having issues. There we go. Now I'm going to try to get it where I can see everyone here. Because I like to see you all in Plainview and Lubbock. For some reason, we're not switching. So I'm not going to worry too much about it if it doesn't happen. Okay, there we go. Hello. All right, I appreciate you. Yeah, just dropped it down a little bit, and there we. Excellent, excellent. Good to see you. Okay, and there we go. All right.
I'm having problems
Excellent.
with our camera too.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
It won't stay down, stay over.
Well, you have some duct tape.
No.
My dad always used baling wire on the farm. So something, here we got all this technology, we have to absorb other things sometimes going in. Is there anyone new to class today or any other classes?
Yes, we have a
If
new
you
one
did
here.
not get the syllabus,
Pass
I just lost my feed here. All right. If you did not get the syllabus, make sure that you do that. I put them on Blackboard. I don't know if you saw them there or not, but I prefer that you have a hard copy, a paper copy of it, and that way it's got the grade sheet on it you can keep up with. If you did not, there's nobody new here with me today, right? Okay. So
Just the one in Lubbock.
Pardon?
I said just the one in Lubbock, he's here and I gave him his syllabus.
Excellent. Very good. All right, so we're going to do something here in just a moment, but I have a couple of housekeeping things in addition that I want to talk to you about. One is I want to emphasize the use of your phone. I just got a message about my mom earlier, right at the beginning of class. If there are things like that that you need to attend to, it's a good message, it's good news. So she's doing fine, as well as she can right now. So anyway, things like that, I appreciate prayers, and I'll give prayers to anybody who asks for them, because I think they're real. But my mom is doing well, and I'm thankful for that. Come on in. Hi there. You were here the other day, right? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure if anyone has not received the syllabus that they get it, and then you have that. And some people like to keep track of that. I'll be putting Grade Center up when it's appropriate to do that. I won't put many announcements on Blackboard, but at times I will. But almost always I will send you each an email. I'll just blind carbon copy those to everybody in this class. I have your email addresses. By the way, if you prefer an email address besides your SPC email address, send me an email and let me know. But I've got those email addresses. They prefer us to use those. Yes, question?
No, I'm trying to get my students on here for you.
Excellent, okay, all right. But if there's a, right here, I don't have a makeup person, so it's strange to see yourself all the time. Anyway, the thing that I want to say though is you might check, but almost always when I put something on Blackboard, you are notified, right? But I'll send you emails with any announcements and things. Did you all in this class or Plainview or Lubbock, did you get the link for the recordings? I didn't send it to this class. I was having trouble getting that out. I had computer problems you don't want to know about, but thankfully it all worked out.
I have one that got it and one that didn't.
Okay. So check your email students and see. I did not put that link on Blackboard. Blackboard is great when it works, but it's problematic. Okay? So, I will be sending notices to you directly by email. So, sometime later today, I'm not gonna say it's gonna be right after this class, but sometime later today, I will send you the link for the recording, and it's a YouTube link. So they're recording this class, you see that red dot on the monitor up there, they're recording this class right now. So, I'll have to watch my P's and Q's, right? But, you'll be able to refer back to that. And so as we get rolling with the lecture today, and as we do other things, you'll be able to go back to that YouTube link at any time and watch it. And I think you can fast forward through certain parts and get to the interesting parts, right? Anyway, so you'll have that advantage, with that. Now, the other thing I want to say, I've mentioned phones before, and, if you notify me if there's a reason for you to have, need to check your phone, and I will do the same. But otherwise, I've turned mine off. And I've seen students on this campus walk into poles. It's dangerous. I did have a student, a few years ago that sat in one of my classrooms that was a friend of Alex Brown. I don't know if y'all know the story of Alex Brown, but the law that says you shouldn't text and drive came from the incident where Alex Brown was killed driving, and texting on our way to school. We've lost 2 students that I know on this campus, and I know that 3 other accidents have been caused by someone texting and driving. But be careful just walking around and texting, okay? But good safe use of your cell phones. And if those of you that drive over here or drive back, that road is crazy sometimes. So I always wait till the traffic is gone before I drive. Anyway, be careful out there. That's what I'm saying, I guess. And the other thing, you know, about, I'll try to make it as stimulating as I can. It may not always be that way, but sleeping and paying attention in class are direct opposites. So I had a student one year that emailed me after the final grades were done, and I'd reminded him all semester, don't lean against the back wall, don't lean back in your chair and go to sleep, pay attention and write your notes. And he said, you know, why didn't I make at least a B? And I said, here are the emails I sent you about not sleeping in class. Usually the dean wants us to refer to student to them so they can talk to them. Nobody's in here you're smarter than that, right? And you're going to pay attention. And I want to try to give you the best I can. So anyway, we'll get rolling here in a moment. But one thing we've got to do, and Judy and Ms. Betts, we're going to do the pre-test right now, okay? So this is something we do in all the classes, and you may do this in other classes just to assess where you are right now, and it's not going to count against you. So if you will get a pen or a pencil, whichever's handy. If you need one, we'll try to scrounge one up. But I'm going to give you this pre-test. I want you to put your name on it. It's mainly true or false, and then some matching. You may not know these terms at all. You may have never seen them. Just do the best you can, and you may just have to guess. But no worries. It's just to assess where you are now. But these are things we will cover later. So please put your name on this and answer the best you can. No worries. Just do the best you can and then forget about this. Please put your name on it. Proceed. may not be able to recognize. Please put your name on this and, proceed with it. We'll give a few minutes for this. Won't take too long. True or false? Remember to make it a clear printed T and, a clear printed, F. All right, that's sort of a necessary thing that we need to do, but I don't want you to worry about it. I'll check these, and I'll get back to you about this. We'll talk about it later. But, those things and much more we'll cover in the period of this semester. But I'm gonna start lecture here in just a little bit. You through? Always, some of you have emailed me already, and I appreciate those emails, and I try to answer them quickly as I can. I'm sitting on a high chair here, and then once I sit down, it just kind of goes down like that. So hopefully you won't see me do an end over. That wouldn't be too entertaining. Or maybe it would be, I don't know. Okay. Now, one of the things I wanted to do here real quickly, let's see if I can get it back up here, and is I want to show you a short video. Let's see if we can get that. Yeah, we're going to get there. Yeah. And I'm going to play this for you.
This is the checkers game where grandson and granddad will bond. This is the kitchen where the new boyfriend will unofficially...
Sorry. Skip ad, there we go. Now we're going to turn up the sound. I'll go back and play this from the beginning.
Balance and caught his fall by accidentally punching a hole into a Paulo Porpora painting, reportedly valued at
Okay, let's go back to the beginning here.
A 12-year-old boy in a Taiwanese museum lost his balance and caught his fall by accidentally punching a hole into a Paulo Porpora painting, reportedly valued at $1.5 million. In surveillance video provided to Taiwanese news from the TST Art of Discovery, you can see the boy walk past the 350-year-old painting, trip over a rope barrier, lose his balance, and leave a hole in the oil painting. He stands there and appears to be shocked at what just happened. Lucky for him, reports say the organization will not ask the boy's family to pay for the cost of restoring the damaged painting, as the painting was insured. But some fear the damage could be permanent. We're sure that the boy will be more careful next time he goes to a museum. Be sure to watch Inside Edition.
All right. Thank you for that unsolicited testimonial. Okay. So, what's wrong with that picture? And I'm sorry, I thought I adjusted the sound. I did about 5 times, and that's still a bit loud. Anyway, so what's wrong with that? I mean, first of all, this student was carrying a drink into the museum, right? Into the art gallery. That's usually, they stop you at the door. And he was part of a class, so the students in that class should have been kind of together, and he was looking around, not watching where he was going, and so he tripped. But he punched a hole in this painting that's, they said 350 years old. So why should we care about that? What, does it matter? Why does it matter? It's history, right? And yes, it's in this museum, but it really is part of the art culture of the world, isn't it? And we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about value and why something like that does matter. Because someone created this painting, and I'll show you some details of that here in just a moment. So, yes, art matters. It's something that's important. I don't know if I can, let's see if I can get this back up here. Oh yeah, I did. And there it was, and there it's not. Let's see. There we go. I wanted to put this up here, and I'm going to show you something that just to kind of lay some groundwork for what we're going to talk about. And I want to find a marker. Okay, so one thing I do want to refer to at different times are the dates to things. And let's see if I can open this a bit more. There we go, it's a little clear. You are familiar with BC and AD, right? My hand's slipping, I'm about to fall off my chair. That's an AD, okay? BC means what? Before Christ. And you're also going to see in different texts this term, right? And some people say this means before Common Era. That's ERA. Because you'll also see this AD means what? Anno Domini, or Anno Domini, some people say, which means, and you'll also see this, and these are the same things, right? Common Era. We're in 2021 AD, but some people say we're also in CE, Common Era. So you'll see those dates, and of course before Christ and after death, some people refer to it as that. But you'll also see this thing, and sometimes it will say C period, or it'll say CA period. That's not California. Does anyone know what that means? It stands for this word circa, from the Latin, where we get our word for circle, right? It means it's around that time. That's a terrible circle, years of art training, right? I can't do any better. That's just quick, right? So circa means it's around that time period. We can't nail it down specifically as a date. And especially ancient things, it's in that range of time, right? So it's circa, it's around that time. So we want to just say that as we begin and before we get started talking about this, because you're going to see those dates. And I've got my textbook open here. I'm not going to refer to every page in here, and like I said, I'm going to try to give you what I think is important, but we're going to begin kind of where we were today, and let's see if I can get back to this, and then I'm going to see if I can get my PowerPoint open. There we go. And let's see if I can start here where I need to start. Okay, here's where this is a painting that you saw in that little clip that was on YouTube. And you can find other clips of that, but the one of the boy falling is from the security camera in the museum. And I'm sure his teacher, I've taken students to museums, and by the way, those of you here with me today, at the end of this class today, I'm going to go over to the art gallery. If you'd like to go with me, you can go to the art gallery. And I don't know yet, folks in Plainview and Lubbock, they said that they may put some of that on our Facebook page. If they do that, I'll let you know so you can have access to it. But I'll talk to students here with me. I'm sorry I can't take everybody, Lubbock and Plainview, distance being what it is. But when we go into the art gallery, there's certain things that we couldn't go until this semester. For a year and a half, it was closed. So we're going to get to go in there, and you'll get to actually walk up to paintings, some from the professor that's at Texas Tech, who has a show there, some work that's in the Hall Gallery, a couple of mine are in there, things that I created. And when we walk up to those works, though, that are in the gallery, some of those paintings are worth quite a bit of money. And so, no touching. That's what this teacher should have told the student, be very careful. And of course, they had a barrier around that, right, to keep everyone away. And you go to things like the Mona Lisa, they've got bulletproof glass around it. And they've got a guard over there, and I think he's got a pretty heavy-duty weapon there in the Louvre. And they have guards that secure these things. So here this happened to this painting. And so a professional restorer, art staff there is looking at this damaged painting, and up close you saw this clip. You can see the interweave of the canvas, right? So they had to go in and carefully with a special microscope to try to repair that, and they put fabric on the back. They did repair it, and then they had someone come in who's a special art restorer and do painting. Sometimes they use water-based paint that can be removed, like a watercolor, so they don't do anything to the original artist's work, but they make it look good, right? So that's a very expensive process, but thankfully they're insured for things like that. Now, these are things that are not in the text, but I wanted to mention this. Now, some of you, they used to teach Latin. I never got to take Latin, but some of you in scientific fields, medical fields, you're going to learn Latin words, right? Biology and so on. Ecce homo means behold the man. I don't know if you know the story, but here's Pontius Pilate, and who is he gesturing toward? It's Jesus, it's Christ, and he's calling out to the crowd, well, behold, here he is, here's the man, what do you want me to do with him? Well, what did the crowd say? Crucify him. Give us the thief and murderer, Barabbas. And that's what he did, and then he famously washed his hands. Well, he didn't expunge that from his record, right? He's known in history as the man who condemned Jesus to a horrible death by crucifixion. And someone who, he said, I can find no wrong with this man. But he let himself be swayed by the crowd. Well, that's a very famous theme in art. Here's a painting from 1871 by an Italian artist, Antoni Cesari. Here's a painting done by Elias Garcia Martinez. And this is a fresco. We'll talk about fresco later because it's a method of painting on the wall. This is from a little church in Spain. Behold the man. But over the years, this is not a very old fresco. Fresco technique goes back maybe as long as 1,000 years ago, but this one was done more recently. But for some reason, it was not done right. It's done water-based paint on plaster. It began peeling. And so this little lady in this town came in, and she felt like she was a pretty good artist, and she just wanted to do something for the church. So she decided, without permission from the church, she was going to do this special thing. She was going to touch it up. So here's what she did. And they started calling it Behold the Monkey because it's a very distorted view from what the original was, right? And this isn't a cartoon or a joke. This really did happen. And so people were, they were ready to do something to this lady. They said, this is travesty, and she ruined this artwork. But anyway, what happened was kind of a good thing because all these people, tourists started coming there who had never been there before. And so they set up a collection box, and so the church began getting funds it never had imagined they would get. So, but people had fun with this on the internet. You've seen The Last Supper by Da Vinci. We'll talk about this later, which is a fresco also, which has some damage to it. But you'll see versions where people took all those faces and put them on. Anyway, so why should we care about famous artworks? Now, your text talks about this. What is the most famous work of art, or what is ideal beauty? Did Leonardo think that the Mona Lisa was the most beautiful woman? Well, there's evidence that he did this, or he took this on as a commission for a merchant's painting of his wife. He ended up not giving it to him. In fact, he was visiting in France, working for the King of France when he died. Supposedly he worked on this a number of years. But is this your idea, our idea today of ideal beauty? Some people say she doesn't even have eyebrows, right? So is it ideal beauty? Is this our idea of ideal beauty? Supermodel or whatever. Or is this the idea of ideal beauty? Now, in 1665, the Dutch artist Johannes Vermeer painted this girl with a pearl earring. They wrote a novel, fictional novel about this, and then did a movie. Some of you may have seen it. But is this ideal beauty? Now, this is very captivating. Now, one of the things I want to say, and I'll be saying more about this, is the fact that do we just look at a painting and do we just kind of see it as it is, or do we need to participate? Is there a dialogue between us and the work of art? as we look at it, do we have some responsibility for saying, this work of art speaks to me, and what do I get from it? If it's too accessible and too easy to see or understand, it doesn't really mean that much, and it doesn't captivate us in a way. So we'll be talking more about that. And here's a portrait by Rembrandt, another Dutch artist. He did a number of self-portraits during his life, from the time he was about 14 till he was an old man. But why do things like this, works of art, captivate us? This is a self-portrait by the graffiti artist, street artist in New York, Jean-Michel Basquiat. Some people say Basquiat, but he did this with spray paint, graffiti artist, remember, and oil stick on canvas. Someone heard about his work, they saw it on the street, they said, this guy's amazing, he's different, you need to go see him. So this art dealer visited him and said, if you start doing these on canvas, I'll sell them in my gallery. And so he became very wealthy. Now sadly, he had all kinds of family issues, and then was very addicted to drugs and died of a heroin overdose. And then the price of his paintings went up, right? Because there would be no more. So art is a business too, right? And it's a commodity. People trade. And was this art gallery owner concerned about Jean-Michel? Well, yes, he was. He tried to help him. But he was also reaping the dividends, right? It was an investment for him. And you bet he had a lot of his paintings stuck away. And so when he tragically died, he said, well, you know, people are wanting these things. And they were going for 6 figures. They sold for over $1 million now, some of them. But this portrait may not appeal to you. He didn't even title it. A lot of his work he didn't title. And you'll see works in this text that you don't understand, but the artist's name is Lung Kunan. This is an Australian artist from the bush, and Bush Tucker in the Encina country. Tucker, I don't know if you've seen the Crocodile Dundee movies, but Tucker is food, right? And it's the people in the bush go out and say, gonna get a gal, and that's good Tucker, right? A lizard roasted over the fire. But this is like an aerial view of someone who never flew in a plane, and here's this artist, Lung Kunan. She's passed away since this was done, since this picture was taken. That's her. Yeah, I know, whiskers. Anyway, this older lady who was a very revered artist. And you can see she's got a brush there, kind of a worn out brush, but she's actually using the end of the brush and dipping it in the paint and using just the round brush handle to make these little dots that you see there. Really clever, really bright, beautiful colors. Her paintings are well sought after. So you're going to see all kinds of things as art. Now let's go. If you have your text, you can refer to page 3. And again, I'm not going to try to talk about all these things. I'm not going to ask you to write all this down, because I'm not going to test you over this. But just information here. Vietnam War, right? We just ended, whatever your opinion about the way it was done, a war in Afghanistan, the longest war for the U.S. Someone said, you know, pray for peace, but there are a lot of people that think that there will never be true peace in the world. I'm sadly one of them. But people always have some kind of disagreements for one reason or another. But when the soldiers that fought in that war, and that was a war, I was actually in the draft when I was some of your age in college, and I got my draft card, and then because of my bad asthma, I was rejected. I didn't have to serve, but I had friends that served, and I have a friend whose name is on this memorial it's talking about here. 2.5 million veterans came back, but 58,000 died or remained missing. Now, today, still, they're searching for remains, and with DNA evidence, they're still finding names, and they're still adding names to this memorial. But this is talking about the memorial. So this guy named Jan Scruggs, let's see if it talks about this, he decided he wanted there to be a memorial to honor these people, and so they began collecting money, and they raised $8 million. I think 600,000 people contributed. I think we sent some money in, and so they wanted a fitting memorial, and so they designated a fund, and they made these plans for a memorial there in Washington, on the mall. That's that long piece of land there in the center of Washington, D.C. And the government approved this, and so they had the funds to do it. So they had a competition for this, and they had thousands of entries. They said that if they hung the 1,400 entries side by side, it would have stretched 1.3 miles, just the entries. And this unexpected entry from this young lady who was a student, 21 years old, from Yale, who was an architecture design student, and she was from Ohio, but her parents had immigrated from China, and she won. Now this is her original design, and some people say, and in fact, Jan Scruggs and some of the Vietnam veterans who wanted to do this, they said, I hate that thing. You're kidding me. This cannot be possibly what we're going to have for this memorial. But it sort of grew on people once it was chosen by the committee, and they decided to spend money on it. They said, yes, it's haunting, but it will create a dignified space. Now, you can't get much from this. You see where it points out the Washington Monument, and this is actually the page that Maya Lin sent in, and they looked at it and they said, yes, this is the one we want. Now, it may not grab you, right? But how many of you have been to the Vietnam Memorial in D.C.? It's powerful, isn't it? Did you know someone whose name was on that? I went to school with a young man from Levelland, Benny Hart, whose name's on there. I did a rubbing of his name, and you'll see when you go there, and the text talks about this a little bit. Now, some said, this is too simple. It's like a grave marker, and that's what that signifies there, yes. But it documents all the names, and they're still adding names of men and women who they recognize the remains from DNA evidence and records and so on. But they did place this sculpture there. That's a bronze sculpture to show the men who fought there. And then later we'll talk about this. They added one for the women, because women were key in that war. Women have been taking care of men that fought wars, but now women are fighting wars. But in the Vietnam era, they were nurses, and they took care of those that had been wounded. And so this is a realistic sculpture of these men that's life-size, or maybe a little larger than life-size, and done in 1984. But that's right there by this. Now, sculpture, this kind of gives you a timeline again. There was even a moving wall, and I went to Texas Tech, and there in that space right off 19th Street, they set up the moving wall, which was a smaller size replica of the wall, and at that time all the names that were on it, that was 1996, it came to Lubbock, it toured towns all around the United States. And then they placed a plaque there. There's a museum that, was it open when you were there, that has the things that people have left there? Yeah, so that's very moving too, because there are things that people left. Now here's the wall, and it's polished black granite with the names engraved into the wall. And they're deep enough that you see people come up and they put their fingers on those names. I don't know if you've gone and visited the grave of a loved one or not, and some people are very reverent about it. Some people don't even like to touch the gravestone. But I've seen people move their fingers over those names inscribed in there. And they have a site where you can go there but you can also go while you're there and look at the name of the people and what row they're in, and they have it numbered. And the day we were there, I took a piece of paper, they provide those, and I did a rubbing of my friend's name, Benny Hart, who came from Levelland and died there. In a couple of weeks, we're going to have a special ceremony downtown Levelland at the courthouse, because there was a man whose family realized his name was not on our memorial here in Ocala County, and his name was not, didn't appear. So we just recently, as part of our historical commission, added his name. He was killed by friendly fire as a pilot. So it's a sad thing that happened, but we finally are recognizing his contribution, and we'll have a special ceremony. They'll have someone there play taps and give a flag to the family. So the wounds of war continue, and I had family, my wife's family fought in the Revolutionary War for freedom. I had family on both sides of the Civil War. My dad fought in Korea, and I know friends that did not come back from the Iraqi and Afghan war, and people that were wounded. So it's a very poignant thing to have a memorial, and this continues on, but it's cut into the earth. So there's grass growing up to the top of this, and it's cut down into the earth, and sort of like a wound in the country, right? And so here's this picture. This is in your text. This man kissing this name that's on there. And the day we were there was a man who came up, and he had kind of long hair. He was an older man, and he had his uniform on with at least the patches on it from serving in the Vietnam War. And he came up and he took a Purple Heart and he laid it under this name, and he ran his fingers over that name. And he just sat there and prayed, and he had tears in his eyes. I mean, that gets you, right? But that's art, and that's the power of a very simple sculpture that's made to honor, but it's made to heal also. And here's one of the uniforms left there. People leave things every day there. They leave flowers, they leave wreaths, they leave all kinds of things. They leave letters, poems. So it's very, very powerful. Now, I'm not sticking with the text very much, but that's on page 5 in the text. This is on page 7, and it talks about the importance of art. These poor people in China, that's one of the most oppressed places in the world, right? There are slaves in China now today. You know that, right? There are people that are tortured and killed, sadly, and we're not doing much of anything about it. These students in 1989 formed for freedom, for democracy. They built this statue for democracy, and you can see video of them standing in front of the tanks and moving as the tank turns and trying to move. But eventually that demonstration for democracy was squashed. And thankfully the people weren't killed, but it's just like today, who knows what's happening there. But it talks about in the text that art plays a central role in our lives. And I'm not asking you to write notes about any of this. It's just discussion right now, so you can think about, okay, what art means. It's everywhere. We have public art around town in Levelland, in Plainview, in Lubbock. It's a human thing. It's an inner calling. What motivates people to make art? Sometimes it's money. Sometimes it's just I'm making art because I love it. And it's something that we're drawn to. It's everywhere, right? You see these symbols for apps. You know what they are. You know what emoticons are, emojis. You know what those things are. You choose. You have your favorite ones. You see things like this that's a logo for a company. Do you see the arrow in there? FedEx chose that logo. They paid someone a lot of money for that. Sometimes they pay $100,000 or more for someone to design a logo. It's a good business for you, right? If you can do it. but, the arrow in there shows that FedEx, Federal Express was their name for years, but FedEx, they wanted to show that we get it there and we get it fast. We get it to you. Sometimes they'll run over you. Be careful not to get in front of them, right? But where's art? Well, it's everywhere. It's in museums. Here's the Philadelphia Museum of Art. It's in galleries in little places like Loveland or Plainview. First Friday Art Trail is coming up in Lubbock. This is the first part of the month. This guy, Simon Rodia, in his backyard in LA, he built this thing as just kind of using leftover concrete from his job and rebar and tile, broken tile, and this thing grew and grew. His neighbors complained. They said it's an eyesore, but now it's a historical monument and a historic site. Tourists come to this part of the barrio in LA to see this monument that he built before he died. Now, your text talks about art producers. We know all these things, architects, designers. We'll look at all this later. Film, jewelry designers, fashion designers, and so on. And it talks about people that are employed in the art industry. There are more jobs today in art than there were yesterday. It's a growing field. And so if you're interested in the arts and you want to look into that, or you may just be interested in art as a hobby. Teachers, art therapists, all kinds of things. Your text talks about this and has this image on page 9. It talks about the fact that what motivated 2900 to 1500 BC, or BCE, if you wish, these people to bring these stones from 150 miles away. They had no earth-moving equipment, just manpower, woman power. And they moved these huge stones. And that ring on the outside, that's the remnant of a wood version of Stonehenge. And there are openings in that. We'll talk about this later, that show the summer and the winter equinox. This shows an image. I think this is pretty amazing. I've been to the beach in Normandy and to the D-Day Museum, and the fact that 9,000 men died trying to capture that beachhead is just incredible. It's hard to imagine. But what they did is they made this template with plywood, I think, and they laid these on the beach in different places, and a number of artists worked on this, and they scratched the sand so you could see these silhouettes of the people who died there that day. It almost seemed futile, but they did take it from the Nazis, and they did take Europe back, and for the cause of freedom. But it's pretty interesting and powerful. Temporary art piece. And your text has this thing that's an LED display on this in this park there, the Crown Fountain, and it has continuing changing faces, and it's like this fountain comes out, this spewing out of this mouth of these people. So it's an LED display. It changes just like LED signs do. So art is all kinds of things in all kinds of places. Talks about government-supported art. Public art is supported by the arts. If you go on the Tech campus, you see art all over, right? And you know how they fund that? They take 2% of the budget of every building and pay an artist to do an artwork. I've submitted my idea more than once, because I'd like to get one of those jobs, because it can be a nice thing for the artist, but to have a permanent art piece there for that building. Now, these around campus, they say we're going to get to do another one here on campus, another mosaic. I hope we do. But governments fund those things, and our tax money goes toward public art, and it talks about different things where they set aside land, they hire artists, and so on. And that there is controversy. Your text talks about this on page 11, and Robert Mapplethorpe did this art display, and I'm not showing you the ones that they really objected to, that people said were pornographic, but they were objecting because government money was used to put this in a public museum. They wouldn't allow children in there, and so on. So, I mean, yeah, there's controversial things, and this doesn't seem very controversial, does it? But it was the steel wall across this plaza. People went to and fro there in New York, the Federal Plaza, and all of a sudden there was this big wall up there, 12 feet tall, 120 feet long. And people said, wait, what is this? And it started, graffiti started being written on it, and people said, I used to go from this building and walk across here. My hip bothers me. I can't walk around this thing, and it's ugly. So finally, it was taken down. Richard Serra did other artworks, but anyway. And your text talks about these things, like who decides what goes in public spaces. Lubbock has sculptures different places around for different people. You see the sculpture of Buddy Holly. You see a sculpture of Tim Cole, who was falsely accused of rape on the Tech campus. And that's at 19th and University there. If you've ever seen that sculpture, I'll show that later and talk about it. In Plainview, you have the fiberglass longhorns, right, the cows. All kinds of things that are out there. This talks about this artwork that was saved. The temple at Abu Simbel was going to be flooded when they built the Aswan Dam to dam up the Nile. And so they decided the best way to do it, to save it, instead of it being covered by this huge man-made lake, was to just very carefully cut it into pieces. And so you see the face of this great statue there being moved by heavy equipment, and you see the size of the men there. The scale of this thing is gigantic. And so they moved it to a higher site that they built. So they saved it. But it talks about a patron being a person who supports the arts. And there's the World Monuments Fund that conserves sites like this that was kind of taken over by the jungle. It looks like it's probably going to be taken over again, this huge tree growing in this site in Angkor in Cambodia. But this is fairly recent. This was a building that was built 130 CE or AD and built by the Romans. It was a temple there, but ISIS came in, and that's what's left of it there. Now, ISIS has done worse. If they can't steal it, they usually destroy it. And they came into a monastery that they felt like offended their religion. They came in and not only blew it up, but they used earth-moving equipment. They pulverized it to powder. So there wasn't even this much left. Now, who is the king of destruction? And they talk about conserving work. This is the Vermeer that we saw earlier, and they've gone through and done all these special scans of it and made sure that the paint is stable, and if they need to do any work to it, and that's a very painstaking and expensive process. But your text talks about all these things, and I'm not going to have all this on the test. We're just discussing right now how art benefits our society. You could say this is art education, art therapy, and it talks about. I really looked at that as a career one time, because I thought this is so great because it helps people, and they're in our nursing homes here in town. They do therapy for people. People who have been wounded in war, people who have had traumatic things happen to them. This is a child who in Nigeria. I've had students from Nigeria, and I said, is Boko Haram a threat still? And this is only a couple of years ago, and they said, very real threat. People they go in and capture these young girls and women and kill anybody they want to. So this is a child who's doing this drawing as part of the therapy to deal with this trauma, this horrible thing that happened to them. So art can heal in a lot of ways. And this talks about this building that was built by students, architecture students. I've worked on Habitat for Humanity houses in Lubbock, and they built all these things for the homeless, so they're not living in cardboard boxes under the overpass. Some people that prefer the dumpster dive living in a place. Anyway, But it talks about all the different kinds of things that art can be, and art can, it talks about Jaws and how that scared people, sharks. It says, they had this, shark that was, and this is on the quote from page 16, it says they built a shark that was, more terrifying than the real thing. I don't think so. I was down at the beach at Padre one time, and this guy was, chased out by a shark, and there was a hammerhead, 6-foot hammerhead shark on the beach that had, washed up. I would be terrified. Yeah, anyway. And this is real horror. Leni Riefenstahl, was a good friend of Adolf Hitler's, and they're showing how these people's minds were controlled by this propaganda that they were going to become the rulers of the world. They almost did. Thank goodness. If you know anyone who fought in World War II, and even though many of those people have died, my father-in-law was one, they saved the world, folks. Thank goodness. I talked to a little lady who was our friends when we were in Germany, and she said, how could we have let this happen to our country? But these things are documents of what really did happen there. And art records those things. This is something that was on line because they were talking about this art being censored. But this is weird that you got this picture on page 18 in your text. Some of the things when I transfer them, this is their PowerPoint, but it's like it's a solarized picture. But that's an actual picture of it was damaged over the years to this Buddha that was carved into the rock. And there was an international effort, and there was money there, and there were people that could go in and do it. They said, we'll cut this apart block by block, and we'll move it out of your space. ISIS said, no, we're going to blow it up. That's what they did. Yes, crazy. Anyway, and this painting was slashed by a person who objected to this nude figure. These things happen all the time. People come in. There are things, you go to the Vatican, there's a sculpture of Michelangelo's you can't get close to because they've got it behind bulletproof glass. Because someone came in it with a hammer, they said God told them to. I don't think that's right, but anyway. There's a multi-billion-dollar, and they estimate it's at least $10 billion in black market art. And ISIS has stolen so much and sold it on the black market. And it shows that this work that was recovered, but they've looted graves, they've taken everything out of museums. There's a lot that was hidden by archaeologists and museum curators so that it would be saved. But we're still recovering things that were stolen by the Nazis, and there's still stuff that's missing. So, multi-billion dollars, 10 billion at least, I think. And we'll end with this today. But again, this is just discussion. I'm not going to have any of this on the test, but I'll give you some things in my study guide, and we'll continue with this next time and kind of get into the heart of it. But I wanted you to see the variety of things that art is, and it's varied, right? But it's also powerful and it's also meaningful. And it touches all of our lives, even though we're not artists or creators of art, whatever. So thank you, Judy and Ms. Betts. Hope you all have a great weekend. If anyone can go to the First Friday Art Trail, I have students say, can I earn extra credit? Well, take a picture of something you see there and just write your thoughts about it and send it to me in an email. So enjoy, be safe, take care. Pardon? Look online. I meant to put the site at ffat.org, First Friday Art Trail. Just put that in a search. I think it starts about 6 o'clock on Friday. If y'all want to go with me to the gallery, I'm going to go over there and close up here. But y'all be safe. Take care.